What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you another Warzone video. Now in this Warzone video I'm going to be showing some tips and tricks and all around helpful information to basically just increase your chances of winning your next Warzone match. Now I do highly recommend you also go watch my last video, as I do showcase some of these skills that I'm about to go through in this video. And also it would be much appreciated if you like, subscribe, turn notifications on, share it to your friends and comment something nice down below. Now this video is going to be a bit longer because I do go over quite a couple things, but if you do stick around to the end, that is awesome. And we are basically just going to jump right into this. So the first thing that you need to do before just going into Warzone is finding someone you can trust, someone you can communicate with, and someone that you kind of know. Now the reason I say this is because going in with random squads is probably, you can get lucky and you'll get some really good players sometimes, and you'll be able to get a nice easy win, but all round it is a lot better if you can have people to actually communicate with, give callouts to, and just rely on in tricky situations. Whereas if you are in with randoms, it's a lot harder to do that because you can't actually speak to each other. The only thing you can really do is mark things, and it's not as efficient. Now whether this be just a random person you find on a community, it doesn't really matter, as long as you can actually just speak to someone and just communicate, it is a lot better. And I will speak more about this later on when we go into the gulag section of this video, as that is also a very important thing when having someone you can actually speak to. But basically the second thing is getting to learn the map, because once you kind of learn the map, you know where the hot areas and the not so populated areas are. You'll kind of get a sense of where you like to start off your games and where you play best at the start. Now I can't really just say best place to land, because in my opinion I don't really think there is, because in the end it does come down to your play style and how you like to play the game. But for example, my favourite place to land at the start of a game is downtown, as I am quite a rushy player. I do tend to push in quite hard and try to get as many kills as possible, which is why downtown is probably my favourite place. So I recommend that if you want to find yours, just land in a couple different places until you find your best start. So the next thing we're going to talk about is buy stations. Now you may have seen these around the map and you've probably already used one. Now I highly recommend the first thing you buy is a self-revive kit. As you can see there, it just saved my life. And I now go on to use my loadout beacon, which is another essential thing that you should probably pick up if you have enough money. They are quite expensive, however they are really helpful, as they do bring in your regular Modern Warfare loadouts into the Warzone. Now this is where it might get a bit more complicated, because Warzone is a free-to-play game. It's a standalone game if you don't have already Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and if you do, it is just an update to it. Now if you don't have it, I'm not actually sure how the loadout system works. I just presume that as you level up, as in the regular version of COD, you will start being able to unlock new weapons and upgrading them with new attachments, which will obviously be a lot harder in Warzone than it would be in a regular multiplayer game. But basically what you want to do for those, you just want to make a loadout that you're really good with, and basically at the loadout stations you can pick that up and have your loadout in Warzone. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is contracts and bounties. I recommend whenever you find one of these, you do pick it up and you go and complete them, as you will be making lots of money, especially with the bounty ones. You actually get to see where enemy players are, and that can be really helpful, especially in end game. Now if someone else, another team, does kill the bounty, you will still get the reward for it, as you saw in the footage just before then. And with the objective ones, where you've basically got to go find like these loot boxes, you can actually get some pretty good stuff from them as well. Some will award you like gas masks and stuff and quite a bit of money. Some will just give you quite a bit of money. Now the secure ones are basically legendary loot drops. They do give you really good stuff, but they do take time to actually unlock, and it does send a beacon up, meaning players will see where you are. So I do recommend not going to really secure those if you're not comfortable with having people rushing you. So now we're onto the gulag. As you can see here, I just got sent into the gulag and I killed him. And basically that means that I get released back into the war zone. Now you can only go to the gulag once, and if you die again after that, the only way of being brought back is if your friend buys you back at a buy station. However, they obviously have to be alive to do that. Now, the reason I said earlier why having another person that you can communicate with whilst in the gulag is also really important is because they can actually give you callouts, because if they're dead as well, then they can actually spectate your game and give you callouts to where the opposing person is, which can be very helpful, especially when the other people spectating are throwing rocks at you, which I do admit does put you off quite a bit and is very annoying. However, that is what you'd actually have to do if you were in with randoms. They would literally throw rocks at where the other person is, and that would kind of indicate to you where they are, which is clearly a lot less efficient than having someone actually tell you where they are. So the next thing we're going to go on to is guns and playstyles. Now obviously everyone's going to have a different way they like to play, and I'm not going to try and make anyone play in a certain style. I'm just going to give you guys some advice on what to do if you are playing in a certain way. So for example, I love the M4 and the CAR 98K. They are literally my loadout for nearly every game when I pick up a loadout supply drop, and for me, I've won quite a couple of games with them. That is what I was running when I got that solo versus squads win in my last video, and I'm probably going to go on to use it for quite a while until maybe something better comes out. But basically, depending on how you like to play depends on what weapons you're going to use and how you're going to approach gunfights and all that. Now obviously communication comes into this again, which is why you further need someone you can actually talk to and rely on. So let's say you are like me and you like to rush up, go into every gunfight, then obviously the best thing you're going to have is an M4 or some sort of assault rifle. Now personally, I do carry around the CAR 98K, which is basically like a marksman rifle, sniper rifle, as my secondary, and I do have the only way you can do that is if you do have the perk. I'm not actually too sure what it's called, but it's one of the red ones, and it basically just looks like two guns next to each other, and it lets you use another primary weapon as your secondary. Now let's say you're more of like a passive player and you like to kind of stay back, then I'd probably recommend using some sort of marksman rifle as well. Obviously the assault rifle is the kind of default thing you'd carry anyway, but if you are more of that like kind of stay back person, then the M4 and some sort of marksman rifle is also a good option for that. Now if you're a sniper class, well, it's pretty obviously that you're gonna want to pick a sniper, but for your secondary it is highly recommended to have some sort of SMG or some backup weapon if you do end up being pushed, because the worst thing that could happen is you're sat there with a sniper and then you're being pushed with people using assault rifles, and you're basically going to have no chance unless you somehow get really lucky and manage to take them all out, which is highly unlikely. So now we're going to quickly go over perks. Now I'm not going to go over this for too long as it doesn't need much attention, and there are quite a couple, so take quite a long time. But basically being smart with your perks can come in clutch in the end. Even though you might not really notice them, they do make a big difference. For example, people using thermal scope snipers, which is currently a really big thing, as it does literally highlight you from miles away. Using the perk called Blooded will literally remove you from their thermal, well, it won't remove you from their thermal scope, it just means you won't get highlighted. Now that was just an example. Another little trick you can actually use is, say you are using the double primary perk, you can make a second loadout which has, for example, double grenades or double tactical, you can go and put on your first loadout with the double weapons, and then if you see another loadout supply drop, you can go ahead and put on your second class that has those double grenades or double tacticals, and then re-equip your weapons from your first loadout that will have dropped on the floor. That way you won't be wasting your third perk, and it can come in pretty handy. As you can see here, I've got two stims on right now, and they are very useful. Even though your health does regenerate, if you do want to get out of sticky situations fast, you can just quickly pop one on and you're good to go. Now another essential perk is having Point Man. Now what this does is it allows you to get more money from completing bounties and missions that you pick up around the map, which are those kind of like yellow card things. I went over this before, but basically with Point Man on as one of your perks, you'll earn more money from completing them, meaning you'll be able to get your teammates brought in faster. You'll be able to buy loadout beacons and self revives faster because you'll have more money from completing them. Now the last thing I want to talk about, I should have probably mentioned this earlier when we were going over the buy stations, but basically you kind of want to have a teammate assigned to kill streaks. And what I mean by this is because you can buy airstrikes and cluster strikes and UAVs and things like that from the buy stations, it is highly recommended to have someone on your team dedicated to getting those, instead of just saving up every time to buy individually, as that does cost quite a lot overall. Now the reason why these are so good is because you can literally push up on a building, call one in on the building, and if you don't already know this, which you probably should, because you'll probably get killed by them quite a lot as it is really annoying, things like cluster strikes and airstrikes will literally kill you through a building, and it is the most annoying thing ever, which is why they are so OP, and I highly recommend everyone having someone on their team, or just you if you have enough money, to pick one up when you have the chance, as it could be the difference between being wiped out by a team with an advantage of high ground in a building, or taking that high ground along with the entire team out. So that is the end of the video, guys. If you did in fact enjoy it, like I said at the beginning, it would be much appreciated if you liked, subscribe, turn notifications on, and make sure you share this to your friends. And I should be making some more Warzone videos in the near future, hopefully helping you guys on getting better at the game and just having an all-round better experience in playing the new Warzone.